write code like a dream. 3 MCP servers, line them up tight. GitHub context 7, shuttle take flight. Pick your first issue, make that fix. Open source power, we're dropping new tricks. Navigate crates, skip drowning in docks. Context 7 hits harder than a kick in a snare rock. We're building with Rust, we're shipping it fast. From the first line of code till it's running and last. We're rock code and mark, we're tearing the stage. Future of dev, yeah, we're turning the page. Yeah, we're turning the page. Yo, shuttle in the mix, deploy with no fear. MCP Magic Productions right here. From editor to cloud, just push and ride. Your Rust in the wild, it's alive worldwide. We're building with Rust, we're shipping it fast. From the first line of code till it's running and last. We're rock code and mark, we're tearing the stage. Future of dev, yeah, we're turning the page. Yeah, we're turning the page. Yeah, we're turning the page.
Hello, and welcome back to the Raw Code Academy. This is an episode of Raw Code Live where we take a look at modern cloud-native development and hopefully show you a few tricks to make your lives a little bit easier. And today is no exception. I am joined by Mark from the Shuttle team to take a look at how we can use AI and in particularly MCP servers to make our lives that little bit easier. Hey Mark, how are you?
I cannot complain. I'm not gonna lie, I had a whole little intro segment planned, and then I was sitting here listening to that intro music that you've got. Is that live? Was that right? Like an AI freestyle. Was that live generated?
No. I spent a little bit of time
Okay.
the AI to do my bidding and get something that I was happy with to kick
Gotcha.
off. So.
That was incredibly impressive. I was expecting just like a little bop, right? And it started with the lyrics, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. Because you did tell me that it was AI generated opening music, so
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah, I like to give the AI just enough information to kind of understand what we're up to, just to give, just to kick it off with something a bit different rather than just like a static waiting screen sitting there chilling doing nothing. It's like
100%.
Yeah.
I by the way, I am Mark. I'm from Shuttle. I will go into all kinds of depth on what exactly that is, but I'm one of the senior engineers here on the team. Now that I'm getting over my mind blown on David's AI skills here, right? If that is any indication of what we're about to see with this MCP stuff, I'm ready for my socks to be blown off.
Nice. All right. So you've told us you are a senior engineer at Shuttle. So let's tackle this two different ways, right? How long have you been an engineer? What do you work on day to day at Shuttle? And what is Shuttle? Like, what should people expect to see from Shuttle?
Absolutely. All right. So let's start from the top there. Gosh, how long have I been an engineer? More than 12 years. I'm not going to do the math because that's going to make me come up with and do some things, right? But let's go 12 plus years. Originally got into it by actually founding a software platform, and don't do that anymore. But that'll teach you a lot about having to do all of your own DevOps and coding and all kinds of stuff. As for what I do at Shuttle, let's go with Magic.
Magic.
Really, yeah, Magic. 100%.
That's right.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Well, if you look at what Shuttle does, it definitely feels like Magic from the user perspective, and that's kind of the goal, right? The entire point of the platform is that you should be able to focus on the parts of your application that are like the parts that you have expertise in, right? Like the thing that you know how to do, and let us deal with all of the rest of it for you, right? So like, let's say you've got an application, you know it works well, right? Arguably, wouldn't it be great if we lived in a world where you didn't also have to know about like how to set up load balancers and global ingress and compute and multi-AZ and all that kind of stuff, right? Like, wouldn't it be great if you just have your application and then go, now let other people use it, right?
Yep.
And that's basically the purpose of Shuttle. There's some other stuff in there around how the infrastructure gets attached to the code. So a lot of other platforms exist for things like infrastructure as code. Shuttle is one of the only ones where we do infrastructure from code, right? So there is a inherent link between your project and its resources that enjoy a lot of the same compile time guarantees that you get from Rust itself.
All right.
And that's Shuttle in a nutshell. I, on my day-to-day, make all of that stuff work. Right. So it's a little code, it's a little infrastructure, it's a little praying and hitting backspace and all the usual development frustrations. But I genuinely enjoy that I get to make that magic work as my day-to-day.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
Of
So
course.
I don't think we've mentioned that, right? But this is for Rust programs. However, and we didn't plan on talking about this, but I got the email this afternoon, and it's like Shuttle for Python, right?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
pretty.
right, so the core values on the company, and we're very serious about them, are ease, simplicity, and joy. Like, we want to make everyone's life easy, right? And we want them to be simple, and we want you to enjoy it, right? Obviously, not everybody knows how to write Rust, right? There are other widely used, widely adopted languages. Of the set, Python seems like the easiest one to get adopted into that shuttle paradigm of making things easy, having it just work, that kind of stuff. So if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if the announcement officially went out yet, but there is a version of the shuttle framework that is for Python. That is the thing that we are working hard on.
Yeah, it went out today. I mean, I got an email
It was
about
the official one. And I will say, I have been a little heads down, so I may have missed that it was the official announcement, because as an insider, I've known for months.
Right. Well, I think it's a great addition. I mean, I'm a Rust developer. I like to write Rust every day. I really enjoy it as a language. I think the ergonomics are absolutely fantastic. The type safety, all the guarantees you get. Like, I think anyone who's writing Python, use it as a stopgap and start writing Rust. That's kind of what I would say. But with where we are in 2025 and AI, which will lead us into our next question, Python is still the language of choice there. So it's great that
Yeah.
it's supported. And of course, I've always been envious and jealous of TypeScript and JavaScript developers, because for many years, from almost day dot, they've been able to do npm run deploy, and bam, they've got an application in production. And Shuttle gives us that for Rust. And I think it's an amazing thing to see. And we'll get there after we've taken a look at some MCP servers today. But let's segue over to the AI chat then, right? You're a senior developer, you're shipping Rust, you're making magic for all of your end users. What is your adoption of AI like at the moment?
So I absolutely use Claude specifically, mostly in my day-to-day. I found it to be the most on point, I suppose. It's the quality is difficult to explain, but like as though I have a competent somebody to pair program with, right? So AI forms a fantastic like working memory for me. A shortcut to having to look up at the docs, a gut check on demand, like all of that stuff that occupies things that aren't like, oh, here's the idea, let's make it happen in code, right? Or if I got to do boilerplate, that kind of stuff, like all of the things that are rote, all of the things that are boring after 10 plus years of doing them, or like that kind of stuff, is primarily what I use it for, and occasionally bouncing crazy ideas off of and go, hey, is this possible? Right.
Yeah, I'm in a very similar position. I do a lot of that as possible. I definitely use it as a sounding board, much like you. And it's like, I've got this idea. Tell me where this will fall apart, and like, let's try and see if we can make it work. Like, I was building an analytics pipeline for the Rockwood Academy, and I wanted to do it all on Cloudflare R2. And it helped me solve a lot of the challenges that I was going to have. Introduced me to something called DuckDB, which I was oblivious to, and now I'm like, this is the coolest thing in the world. Like, I could query data over this in a Parquet format. Like, hell yeah! Like, I'm here for this. So that was amazing. As far as writing code, I feel like, I mean, I don't trust it. I need to guide it. Like, I would never just like YOLO it and go to sleep and come back and like commit and push or anything like that. But I feel like that's a context problem. Like, and the non-determinism is obviously a challenge right now. Like, you can tell it to write tests first, but sometimes it'll just ignore you. And I feel like this is just because they don't understand how to work within their constraints and context yet. And I can only imagine that is something that all of these AI LLM companies are working on. And 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, I don't know how long, we'll look back and can't believe that was ever a problem. And I'm very excited for our AI augmented coding future. I think it's going to be fantastic.
Absolutely. And I will say, as more senior developers, I almost think that some of that mistrust is a little bit of baggage. right? Like every senior dev I've ever, had the pleasure of working with or talking to has one of those war stories of like, oh, I did this or I saw this and everything should have been fine. And everything that I had known up to that point meant that I didn't live in a world where X was possible. And then X happens where X is like, I crashed everything. I dropped all of the tables. Like it's destroyed. It's chaos. Right. And so a little bit of that mistrust for AI, I think, comes from that capacity of it. I will say some of like my coworkers, for instance, who were not as like into like dev culture or haven't had so many of those like, oh, I stepped on a landmine yesterday sort of experiences, seem to have a different relationship with AI, where it's not more inherently trustful, but it's like less damaged, right? Like it right, and they do seem to have a bit of a different experience. So I will say, getting it to do explanations helps a lot with that. Or like one thing that I will use AI specifically for is like looking at unfamiliar code, especially in
Oh, yeah.
languages that I'm a little rusty in, right?
But,
Pun intended. Pun intended. Yeah, yeah. And doing like, okay, what is this actually doing what I think it's doing? Or, like what's actually going on here? What am I missing? What am I not seeing? That kind of thing. And it's fantastic for building that trust in, okay, this thing actually knows what it's talking about. I'm still never probably gonna blind push. Yeah, it's fine. It'll probably work. But in test writing, the explanations, all of that is a great way to build that trust up. Tip for fellow devs.
Yeah. Just last week, I pulled an unknown almost code base. I was like, I've had an issue open on this repository for years that no one's ever tackled. And I was like, I wonder if the AI can do it for me. And you know what? It did a really, really, really good job. So, anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about, right? We're going to focus on MCP. So before we start talking about what MCP is and why it's important for bringing AI into our dev workflows, I will just say to anyone watching, we're curious. If you're using AI today, drop a comment and let us know how you're using AI to see if it's similar to us, or maybe you're going down a different path. We'd love to hear from you.
Oh, and which MCP servers you're using, because that surface area is exploding. And obviously, we want to know about the good ones.
Yeah, was it yesterday? GitHub announced their MCP registry. So you can go to github.com/MCP and bam, you've got thousands of MCP servers ready to be added to VS Code or your IDE editor or AI agent of choice, which is very, very cool as well.
That is exciting.
All right. So what is MCP? You happy to tackle that question?
Absolutely. So do we want the actual answer or the answer that you might get from the typical senior dev?
I'm now very curious about the answer from the typical senior dev. Go for it.
Fair enough. With the forewarning that this is the cheeky answer, not the real answer, right? It's basically a way to give AI models the ability to do whatever they want in a structured fashion, right? So I'm not going to use the phrase remote code execution as a service, but it sure does look like that. But no, the actual answer is a way to give the model guardrails on the ability to do stuff, right? Because like, for instance, if you've got a model that is an expert in doing like code generation or code execute, like all that kind of stuff, you, again, just like we said, you don't necessarily want to trust it to do those things unsupervised. MCP is a way to give those models that tooling in a way that the model can understand what each tool is for and how to use it, and put guardrails on what those things are, right? So like if you let a model run things in any terminal, right, it might run any given command. And RM is like a dangerous command when you follow it with like RF, for instance, right? If that was made available to a model like via an MCP server, it would have things like, not allowing that. That's a very condensed sort of, right? Yeah.
Cool.
There we go.
Yeah. So we're going to take a look at 3 different MCP servers today because, we never even had this discussion. I think we came to some sort of telepathic decision that these are the 3 potentially most valuable MCP servers to Rust developers. And I know that there are MCP servers that I definitely use all the time. So I'm assuming anyone watching this who's interested in Rust and MCP, these are going to be super helpful to you as you do more AI development workflows. So which MCP servers are you going to be taking a look at today?
So the ones that we've got prepped to share with folks are the GitHub MCP server. So specifically the one for the GitHub API itself, not necessarily the registry that you just mentioned, right? Context 7, which gives models better structured information on the docs for packages. And I did look at that the other day, and it's got like all of the docs for all of the major registries, which is fantastic.
Yep.
And then the home plug, like the just for me, the Shuttle MCP server, because there is a Shuttle MCP server.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we just get our screen shared and we show people how to start leveraging these things today. So I am going to pop us over to the screen share.
And that sounds good to me. I will say, I think your expertise vastly eclipses mine here, so I will follow your lead. Let's say I act like a set of remote hands for you and follow instructions, yeah? Well, that way folks can see what it's like, to actually use these things in a more structured fashion, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you are using Warp.
Yes.
So you have configured the MCP servers in advance. Now, I am not a Warp user, so I would love to know how you set these up compared to how I set them up.
Absolutely. So if you have played with them at all, MCP servers in general, the configuration for them appears to be standard, like part of the protocol itself, which makes it really nice. And they all follow a very similar sort of layout where they've got some type of either a command or a remote URL, right? And then whatever you need to give it to run that. At the moment, Warp kind of only supports things that can be run via command, right? Which is great because the Shuttle MCP server works that way. The GitHub one does specifically offer either a Docker container, which will run locally via a process, or the remote HTTP and SSE endpoints. There is a fantastic NPM package called MCP Remote for using those, which is what I personally prefer. But again, they all look the same sort of way, where you've got either the command or a remote endpoint, and you just sort of plug it into the JSON structure here. And as you can see, I've got context 7, GitHub, and the linear one, because that's how we do work tracking, and the Shuttle MCP server all set up. That is in the settings, right, in the AI tab. Sorry, if you're specifically using Warp. I think there's a different way to do it if you're using like the Claude or Gemini tools, but it's relatively standard.
Yeah, I'll show that because that's
Okay.
the tools that I use. So I'll show that when we pop over to me. So what I would love is, are you in an empty directory right now?
I am.
Okay. I would love to contribute to Shuttle. It's an open source project. It's written in Rust, right up my street, and I love magic. So let's use your GitHub MCP server to see if it can help me find some sort of way to contribute to the project. That to me would be like my perfect open source hat. I want to get involved. Show me how kind of method.
Let's see. So let's say, help me find 2 or 3 good issues to start contributing. I can type.
Everyone can type till they've got eyes on them. That's the rule. It's like a law.
100%. There we go.
All right. So you've said to Warp, you want to contribute to a repository on GitHub.
Yes, and it's probably relevant to say that I am specifically using Claude 4.1 Opus. You can see that down in the bottom of the screen, where you can select really any of these. That's may not, yeah, the font isn't showing up correctly, but from top to bottom, that's auto, light, and there's got GPT, some couple flavors of Claude, and then 04 and 03. And so you can pick what you want to be interacting with model-wise, which is super nice.
All right, so we can already see it's made some tool calls. So we've got some thinking. It's going to help us find some starter issues. It's running a search issues. And it's cool that it's actually said like, hey, I found an issue with good first issue label. So like, it's quite nice that it surfaced that right off the bat.
Ooh, yeah. I like this breakdown too that it's given me here, where It's giving me the issue type and then, the description on what is actually going on here and what needs to be done. Let's pick one of these.
Well, can we
Hey,
scroll up? I just want to see what it gave us.
oh, of
All right.
course. Yeah, absolutely. There we go.
All right, so
I
top
also
3
know how to
issues.
scroll in.
So we've got 2055, auto update the project ID on project creation. So why is it good for me? Clear scope, involves CLI behavior, file handling, no complex infrastructure. Yeah, it's really nice that it's trying to understand our intentions and what we're trying to do is give it a difficulty level. I mean, it's even shown us the fact that it's opened, unassigned, and has 0 comments. This is one of the, when I personally am looking at a new project, when I've done this in the past, right? You go to the project, you click on issues. I always filter for something that's had no comments because you don't want anything that's got 4,000 comments on it because the chances are that's not one you're going to be able to pick up. So I always look for those things, and it's just done that by default, which I think is really nice.
And I was going to say, I kind of work the opposite way, where I'll look for something that has comments in the hopes that context will be given in those comments, which another fantastic use of some of these models is summarizing the existing conversation. Because like you said, some of those can get up to several thousand comments, in which point the context is very much lost, but you get to recover that if you do it that way as well.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I think it definitely looks like it did that on a couple of these as well. So I'm thoroughly impressed here. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, 1602, currently assigned but hasn't had any activity since September. Like, I mean, that's just nice. That's great information right off the bat, and it's telling us it's got the good first issue label, and it's telling us that it's a straightforward task. Like, this would be a really good one to pick up, which is fun. And the issue description even mentions the solution. Like, that's awesome.
Do we want to try our hands to getting it to help us do that? Do we think?
So we're thinking 1602, add the quiet flag.
Yeah.
All right. Have you got a clone of Shuttle? Or are you going to just let it handle everything?
I'm going to see. Let's push it. Let's see what it can do for us, right?
All right. Well, you type that out. We did get a question in the chat, so I'm going to pop that on. YMO, nice to see you again. Is anyone using Goose? It's written in Rust as well. So Goose is the CLI, I can't even talk, is the CLI agent from the company Block or Blocks. I can't remember if it's pluralized or not. It does get a lot of really favorable reviews. I know people seem to like it, but it's not one I've used day to day just because I use Cloud Code, the subscription plan. I think is incredible value. So I haven't deviated away from that yet. But I have heard very good things about Goose, and I know they've got a desktop client as well, which people also rave about. So maybe one day I'll take a look at it. All right. How is Warp and Opus 4.1 getting on?
So it asked me if I wanted to do it with a plan because it was complex. So I said, yeah, absolutely, go ahead. Not a problem. Do that. And I do have a local copy of the Shuttle repo, but I don't want it to use that. I want a fresh copy. So let's change our prompt to say, and I'm being specific with the org and repo name here, mostly out of like paranoia, I think. I think it probably could handle it from the context, but just as a matter of like habit, I am being specific here, if that's worth mentioning.
Cool. Yeah, you're being hyper specific, but yeah.
Yeah, and again, this is a personal experience thing. I have found that obviously not like down to the like atomic level of specificity, right? But the more specific you can be within reason, the better the results seem to be.
All right, so it is cloning. Now, does the Shuttle repository have any agent.md, Claude.md, Gemini.md? So, like, has anyone started putting together context and rules for AI development on Shuttle?
I don't believe so. But now that you mention it, I think it's probably a fantastic idea for us or somebody to do. I mean,
Yeah,
these tools are evolving at such a pace that if you had asked me that like 6 months ago, I probably would have gone absolutely not, right? But like now that's like it means something now, right? It didn't probably a year ago, I would say.
yeah. I mean, I never really started taking AI development seriously until March, when Claude Code really changed my mind on what AI could do. So yeah, it's not even been that long, and it is very quickly evolving. All right, what are you doing now? Let's see. So I think it's just trying to understand the code base, right?
Well, so yeah, but it's doing it like really kind of surgically here. This is really impressive. So it started by listing the general structure of things, and it looks like it kind of grepped around to find things that it expected, and now it's sort of following the trail that it seems to have found. And it kind of looks like it definitely pulled in that conversation that we were talking about on the issue, while it was doing its initial search, because it's pulling down. I mean, it went like right to all of the areas that you would need to touch to deal with this.
Nice.
I'm excited to see what it's coming up with, and I will say it's probably, this is a really good showcase for this, because we're using Opus 4.1 for the planning and the execution here, and that's like a very very up to date, very powerful model.
Also
Right?
very expensive. What, $75 per million output tokens?
No, and it is that's definitely something you got to take into consideration when you're deciding what to work with and how.
Yeah.
Where there's a balance between the let's go with power in quotes of a given model, versus like the task that you want to apply it to. I will cop to the fact that I wanted to put on a good show for folks today. Like, I wanted the best possible results, right? So we went straight to the top shelf, accept no exceptions, right?
A good single malt of AI agent models.
100%. Right? If we're entertaining folks, right? Let's break out the good stuff.
Exactly.
So what do we got here? We've got add quiet flags, right? Okay, that seems correct. This follows the same patterns, right? So it has picked up on the existing conventions, which is good to see. Pass the quiet flag to the cargo build function. Excellent. Conditionally suppress output messages in local run. So that also looks correct. And yeah, okie doke.
So as a developer who works on this code base day in and day out, like is anything here that you're like, no, I would not do that? Or are you pretty happy with that?
And again, this is some of that baggage that I was talking about earlier, of that you just sort of accumulate as a developer. This seems so correct, I'm suspicious of it. Right? Like, not only is there not anything in here that doesn't seem right, it seems so correct that I'm like, I have to have missed something here, right? In point of fact, some of the things that I have had AI do for me has been so on point that I spent more time doubting it than I did actually getting it to happen. And that's a bit of a self burn, I'll say. I'll cop to that, right? But just to give folks context here, right? Like, that's kind of how impressive some of these are. But yeah, and you know what? This is an ephemeral version of this repo. This is not like my professional work. This is something for a demo. We're going to get right with that, and we're going to let this happen. We're going to see how this goes, because I mean, it's even got tests in here. So full steam ahead.
Yeah, let's go.
Activate. Get them.
All right, we get a task list. So it's broken it down into add the flag to the struct, pass it to the cargo build function, and then add conditionals to output messages in local run. So,
And I was wondering if it was going to make a new branch or not. Man.
And it is, yeah.
Yeah,
And
100%.
number in it as well. Nice.
Look at that.
So does the shuttle CLI? I mean, this is, if you don't write Rust, apologies to anyone watching who's like, what the hell are you talking about? But I would use the tracing crate for pretty much all inputs and outputs and events and stuff like that. Is that what Shuttle does? Are you using print line statements? Like, what is it having to contend with here to do this optionality for quiet output?
Absolutely. So if you actually look at the code base itself, there are a couple of println and ePrintln statements. They are happening in the areas of the code that execute before tracing can be set up, right? So like before argument parsing is done, I think it's kind of obvious once you get to looking at it. But for the most part, you're correct. We are also huge fans of tracing as well. And I will also plug on something else that I found the other day that I think is particularly great. The Logfire SDK crate, right?
I don't know this one.
Tracing, yeah, tracing for doing telemetry, right? But once you've got your telemetry done and you need to send it somewhere, right? There's a whole ecosystem of like crates that are involved in getting that all set up for export and amalgamation and collection and doing all that kind of stuff. The best library in the world that I've currently found is the Logfire SDK crate. It's Logfire on crates.io. And they've also got a place for you to view all of that telemetry stuff as well. It's a fantastic platform for
Sweet.
telemetry data. It just so happens that it all works over the OTel standard. So if you're looking for a way to not have to deal with all that yourself, highly recommended.
All right, I will
And
definitely.
this is just flying along. And I like how it's keeping track of the changes as well.
Yeah, I'm not a warp user, but I'm liking that each of the, I'm assuming these green ticks are tool calls, so file edit, read file, etc. But we're seeing how many lines were added and removed, like as we go. Like it's a really nice touch. This is a great interface, and it's even. I can see the wee expand arrow on the right. Like, can you just expand the 2.2 one to add the flag? I just want to. I'm assuming it's like what we see actually right in front of us. So.
2.2, this one.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you just see the diff. That's really nice. I've got to say, warp has smashed this.
But like you can also still scroll around in the file for full context, which is one of the more frustrating things of doing, like looking at diffs and like the GitHub windows and stuff, where it'll just do a couple of lines and you're like, I actually need to know what's like 2 lines up and 3 lines down. So it's not just showing us the diff. You can still scroll around for the full context, which is super helpful.
Yeah, very cool.
Activate. All right, so I'm going to make an alarming confession. And if anyone ever asks if I said this out loud, I'll deny it. And even if you show them the video proof, I'll still deny it. Right? But like this is going so well that it erodes my complete distrust of Brave mode. Right? If you had asked even 2 hours ago, so would you ever turn on Brave mode where you don't have to explicitly allow stuff to run? Absolutely not, never. This is going so well that I'm beginning to question that assumption. And that's worrisome.
So we're not covering this MCP, but I'll plug it just because I think it fits in well with your Brave mode. But do you know the Dagger project?
No, tell me more.
Dagger do CI/CD, workflow execution inside of containers using BuildKit, but they released an MCP server called Container Use, and it just means that whenever you stick Claude or Warp on YOLO mode, but basically you just do whatever the hell you want, you can tell it to use a container, and it Dagger spins up a BuildKit thing and it puts all the code in, and the container works with the files using so it uses their tools, like read file, edit file, all goes to the container instead, and then you can export it locally. So you just get this super safe way of doing it. It's really nice. It's a nice MCP as well.
Yeah, so that is one of those things where for some of like the more involved things, like it's not really probably obvious, but I'm kind of watching this out of the corner of my eye, and every time it's wanting permission for something, I'm hitting enter, right? For things like this, where it's like it's very low stakes, just get to the end of it, right? Like it's the type of thing I would turn on YOLO mode for, and obviously I haven't here, but something like that would give me a lot more confidence in turning on and then not having to hit enter every 3 or 4 seconds for several minutes. I'll have to ruminate on that, because that's also one of those, the more comfortable you get with it, the more likely you are to get bit by it. And again, there's that baggage.
All right, it's compiling. A Rust compiler. Shit. Should we just take a break for 20 minutes?
Absolutely. You want to swap war stories on coming to Rust from Python?
Did you come from Python?
I did. I was primarily a Python developer before becoming a full-time Rust developer, and that is definitely one of those a very specific experience of there are some problems that only exist in Python that you don't realize are as annoying as they are until they completely disappear in Rust. It's like I'm sitting here watching this. I'm like, well, if this compiles, I got less to worry about, but I'll know in advance.
Oh, it failed. Bad AI.
But
A borrow an issue.
it's fixing it. It's fixing it, and that's one of those things. Like Rust, the compiler is your friend. It'll tell you what you did wrong and how to fix it 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, I always get borrowing issues. I mean, I can't say every time I compile, I get borrowing issues. So I don't judge the AI. Oh, it worked.
We're getting there. Well, that was just the seed. Oh, it did work.
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah. Look at that. Get him, Claude. All right. Well, hold on. Please rescind that. It worked. Put it on hold. We might reissue it in just a second. We'll see. But I do like seeing. Oh, it worked. We reissued the it worked. Look at that.
Oh, it's going to test it. Although we don't have anything to run shuttle against, right?
Incorrect. The shuttle repo itself includes examples, and you can see the AI has picked that up, and it is actually running one of the Hello World examples for us.
Wow. It's impressed me so much I had to cough. Anyway.
You love to see it. Now, I'm curious to see what it's going to do, because the shuttle CLI, look at that. That's crazy. You see, in case it's not obvious, obviously I work on shuttle. I have the shuttle CLI. Like, I'm not just a shuttle team member, I am also a shuttle user. So I 100% have the shuttle CLI, which does not have the quiet fix in it. So you can see the path that it's using is referencing the version of shuttle that it just built. Yeah, which is bananas.
So what output should we not expect to see? Or does it not affect the init? Is it just the build command?
It is everything, essentially. So we shouldn't expect to see most output, I believe.
Right,
We
so
are
it's going to
going
do
to
a
find
run.
out.
Yeah.
Ta-da. All right. So we haven't and that all that verified there when it did the quiet flag and the checking is that we haven't broken anything. But that's a good check. Like it's showing instincts that kind of take a couple of mistakes to develop in my experience. Like you gotta not do it right a few times before you know how to do it the right way around. But it's just doing it the first time around, which is super impressive here. And I will say, I think I'm probably newer to using MCP than you are in general. How much of this is being assisted by the MCP stuff, and how much of this is just Claude?
So far, the only MCP tool call we have seen was the GitHub issue search. So there hasn't been any MCP right now.
Is the model like aggressive about using servers if it has them? Like if you've got more MCP servers configured, is it gonna try to use them?
So I will try to determine when to use them. The MCP servers and the tool calls do their best to try and say, like, use me when this condition happens. But you can also pre-load that in your CloudMD, agents.mdb, Gemini, any of these files that the agents read to understand how to work to your preferences. You can say always use the MCP for these calls and stuff like that. But it's just not had a need for MCP yet, because really finding the issue was what the MCP was needed for. But as we move into taking a look at our next MCP server, we'll start to see those tool calls be used a bit more.
And that's fair, because something has definitely gone wrong here, and it's eating the output. So I'm not positive what exactly that is. You can see there's 3 failed calls there, the little X's, right?
Can you expand them?
Yeah. So it failed running the tests. which are, oh, that I think is probably going to need some human debugging, because those are testing, I think, probably things that are specific to the output. So that's probably some interface that really is going to require us to get in there and figure it out. But all told, so far, I think it's a fantastic start. That's for sure. There's definitely something to be iterated on here. So I'm still pretty impressed. I'm
Yeah.
not thrilled with the conclusion that the test failure appears unrelated to our changes. They're failing because the example project didn't exist, which, I mean, that's right, but I don't think that that's the full context here. I'm going to go ahead and control C this one. But I'm still impressed. Take us on to our next example. Where are we headed from here?
Well,
Or we were going to take a break, weren't we?
were we?
I got excited and got ahead of myself. It was one or
Oh,
the
well, I was
other.
going to take a break because the Rust compiler was running, but we managed to wait that one out. So we're going to take a look at the Context 7 MCP. This is one of the ones I definitely use on every coding project just because it is super valuable for the agent to learn more about the libraries and SDKs that it's working with. So, for example, the Context 7 MCP is a API for documentation. Is that the best way to describe it? Is that?
I think so, because it's not just an API for documentation. It also goes through and pulls the documentation for the libraries, and then it looks like it does some like processing essentially that makes those docs better for the models to consume, or like puts them in a way that the model can consume them and give you the best output essentially, right? Which kind of, not everybody writes docs, which is a shame on all of us collectively, I'm sure. And not everybody writes their docs with the intent of being consumed by AI models, right? Because you would write differently for developers than you would for models. Context 7 kind of helps to solve that gap where you can still write for developers. They'll break everything down so that the models can consume them in a more structured fashion and return all of that information so that the model can give it back to you when you need it in a way that's actually helpful.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure we've all had that experience of pulling up the docs for something and it's just a wall of text and you're like, what am I supposed to do with this? Right.
This is one of my biggest frustrations with docs.rs. Well, it's invaluable. I mean, it's definitely very machiney. Like it's really it's just here's the types, here's the functions, and there's no human touch to it. Very little human like text or narrative to kind of guide you on what you need to be looking at. And I feel like Context 7 does help there. Like as an example, right? You've got Warp open, so like, can we ask Warp explain the tracing subscriber API to me? And see what it gets. Now, it may try and do this from its own memory, so we may have to nudge it, but let's try without first and see.
That's tracing subscriber the trait.
Yeah. Or just say tracing subscribe. We don't know the types, right? So let's just say tracing subscription API. Like I want to write my own subscriber and see if it can help guide me through the types. And we can nudge it in the right direction if we have to.
Let's be a little more vague than we were previously. I am going to go ahead and start a new conversation because I want the model to tell me its answers without respect to what we were doing previously. That is a trick that I probably wouldn't have picked up previously as well.
Okay.
Where like I figure, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Ooh, no.
It's trying to do it by looking at the local code. So why don't we interrupt it and say use context 7? And that's my number one tip for anyone who isn't using these AI tools yet, is like escape and just course correct your agent as often as possible is the best way to get the best results. Like,
let me back up a directory because it seems to believe that we are doing something that we are not. And this is one of those, sometimes you do got to go back and forth a little bit, where it'll kind of want to rabbit off in a specific direction, and you got to be a little harsher about it. There we go. Look at that. Oh, wow. So a while back, we did introduce a telemetry feature on the shuttle platform just to get that extra little in there. And I happened to lead that work. That was something that I came up with from start to finish, implementation, pushing the whole nine. So I happen to know what it's like to actually implement one of these layers and how confusing the docs are. So off the rip, what it came back with here is like on the money, just on an initial scan. Yeah. And you can see, and this is, I'll ask because I'm not positive. I won't state this, but I will say, see how it's got introduction to the tracing subscriber, and then it's got the trait and all of the rest of these traits. Honestly, like it can't have done that without the MCP, because like there's no way that the model itself knows all of this stuff. Right? I'm assuming it reached out to Context 7 to find out about these things, and now it's presenting, right? Because this is the plan that it's telling us that it's going to execute.
I'm not sure. I didn't see a tool call, but let's let it go and then we can see.
Absolutely. Let's find out. There's tool call.
Oh yeah, there we go. That's definitely so those resolve library ID and get library docs. These are 100% context 7 tool calls. So it didn't find tracing subscriber specifically. But it did then use the tracing ecosystem directly. Nice. Can you scroll up a bit?
Absolutely.
So the second tool call for the, go up a bit more. Yeah, the get library docs. Can you expand that? Oh, I just want to confirm that it went for the tracing library. It did, Joe. Okay, website's Irish.
It did.
That is nice. Very cool.
Absolutely. And that is also a little impressive because tracing is the thing that we actually need. Tracing subscriber, because it has both of those words, would be easy for it to trip up on. And you can see it kind of did up here, where it seems to have assumed that we wanted tracing subscriber, which is understandable because like they're from the same set of packages, the same ecosystem, the same maintainer, the whole nine. So the fact that it course corrected and still pulled down the correct thing is bananas, right? Because like I'm a human. I have absolutely made that mistake of going, oh, this is actually the thing that I need, looking at the wrong docs for half an hour before I realize, no, it's the other crate. That's like literally, that's a half an hour working time that you don't have to spend as a dev.
Nice. All right, shall we swap screens and move on to I'm going to do a context 7 as well, but I also want to loop in the shuttle MCP and show people what we're doing with the shuttle MCP, unless you want to show anything else before we start.
Oh, no. That's 100%. Let's do it. Let's show them.
All right. Cool. So here we are. This is my real Raw Code Academy production project, and I want to make a change, and I've been wanting to do this with Shuttle for a while, and this stream was a perfect opportunity to do that. So I'll start with some context. This is the Raw Code Academy website, and I'm going to search for clustered. And unfortunately, we don't get anything back, and this has been driving me crazy for a long time because the search is just truly awful. Now, searching for Kubernetes is okay. You get some articles, you get some videos, but the search is sporadic at best and useless at worst. So I started building a search service for this, and this is a Rust application using a really cool project called Tantivy. that fetches all the data from my GraphQL API, and the plan is to add more, scrape the sitemap from the website, and provide like a really comprehensive search experience. So what we want to do is run this application first and foremost. So we'll just say run. I'll go to localhost 3000, and then we'll go to /search, and I'll do the same search for custard. And we'll print this, and we get some. Why are you not zooming? There we go. And we get lots of results, right? So this is working nicely, but this is just a standard Rust application. There's no concept of shuttle anywhere in this repository. I'm using Tokyo main, and we're using Axum as the HTTP layer. That all make sense to you, Mark?
Absolutely, and that's a really common pattern. So,
Okay. So we're going to fire up Claude Code. That is my agent of choice at the moment. And I'm going to run /MCP, and you'll see that I have container use, which may be failing to connect. I don't know if Docker's running right now. But we have context 7, and we have shuttle MCP. So while Mark configured, there's a warp via the UI. You'll see here that I've got my user config, which is in my home directory called JSON, but I also have my project config. So I'm going to show you that. So if I pop open Claude and go to settings.local, you can see here I've got enabled MCP, JSON servers, container use, and shuttle. And if I pop open mcp.json, they're just configured in exactly the same way. So container use is doing Studio IO, and shuttle is the same. So it just runs shuttle MCP start. And that is it. That just means that I can now speak to Claude and hopefully encourage it. There was no context 7 there, was there? Aha.
I was going to say, there was at least one of those missing.
I mean, don't blame me. So,
This will be a good look at setting that up. There you go. That's the one.
They actually have Claude Code instructions. So I can just do this. So let's pop out. I'm not going to use an API key. I don't need it. You get a pretty generous free tier. I can change scope to project. I should stick it in my local one right here. There we go. Perfect. All right, let's fire up Claude again.
And I think it's probably worth noting as well here for a lot of these MCP servers, you'll see, very similar things to what David just showed you on those instructions, where sometimes they'll have the generic ones, and they'll generally have how to do it in various tools as well. And they'll tell you whether or not it's something that's locally run or a remotely available server, like the Context 7 one is.
Yeah, and to go back to your point earlier about MCP being remote code execution, we do kindly get this prompt saying, look, we're about to run this untrusted code. Are you sure about this? And I can just say, yeah. I mean, this is an HTTP one, right? So actually, there is no RCE here. We can run MCP. We'll make sure that those are happy. They are. And now what we want to do is, I'm going to put Claude into plan mode. I don't want it to do anything without me just approving that. And I'll say, I want to deploy a search service to shuttle. What do we need to change? So we'll give that just a little bit of a second. And there's my container use failed, but that's okay. I don't think Docker is running right now.
That happens. I'm curious to see if it'll come up with, or rather what it will come up with, because Shuttle does support, I think, all of the most popular web frameworks here. Axum is definitely my preferred, right? So I'm glad to see that that's what you're using.
Well, it's kicked right into MCP already. So it's like, hey,
there we go.
Let's go through the shuttle docs and see what we need to do. So that's absolutely fantastic. That's exactly what I wanted to see. So
shuttle context setting in. We're doing it today.
And now it wants to look at my code base. It wants to know how it works. So it should really, in fact, it didn't search for an Axum example, but fortunately for the documentation, it came straight back with Axum anyway. So,
and this, again, personal preference, would love to know what anyone watching prefers web framework wise in Rust. But Axum is just nice, it's easy, it's ergonomic, it's kind of straightforward. and still supports all of the cool fanciness without too much cognitive overhead. So it is my personal preference. But we do support, it's like 6 different web frameworks at least, something like that. It's at least 4 that I can think of. It's been a hot minute since I've been in that part of the directory because it's big.
Right, well, I think it has everything it needs. So, all right, so it's worried about my index. So I store that in a directory because rebuilding it, I just don't think is a problem for 400 odd records. So we can just tell Claude not to worry about that. However, it is trying to, in fact, this is what it does already. So that's kind of it does build the index on startup. So I could just tell it to do that. It is suggesting that we could go down the database route, which is really nice. It understands that Shuttle can give me a database from the documentation. That's very cool. It's worked out that we need to add Shuttle runtime and Shuttle Axum to our cargo toml, and then we have to then update from Tokyo main and the return type of our main function to what Shuttle expects, even going to the point of creating a shuttle.toml to handle the deployment. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of advice. We already build the index on startup. It's okay for it to not be persisted. Is there anything else I need to be concerned about? I don't think so.
You can, if you want, tell it not to worry or bother with the shuttle.toml. The shuttle.toml is completely optional. It exists just for like convenient configuration purposes. Doesn't have to be there.
All right, and just because we're talking about context 7, so I've told it like we built the startup, the index on startup is fine. We've now told it the shuttle.toml is optional. I want it to update the plan. I also really want to understand this return type. So I'm going to say use context 7. I want to understand the return type. And I don't need to be this specific. I've even got a typo on context 7. The LLMs, they just swallow this stuff up. They're really good at understanding intent from these instructions.
This definitely feels like a do as I say, not as I do sort of deal. I can absolutely see myself making a horrifying typo that I don't catch that leads the LLM down a very dark road. Right? Granted, that is because I learned to spell in American public schools, but that's a whole separate set of issues.
All right. Well, it's now went through your documentation. Understands that type.
Wow, yeah. That's crazy. And again, I don't mean to unnecessarily hype it up. It's just like you're a dev, you're a working dev. How much time do you actually spend like reading and trying to wrap your head around docs? Like realistically.
Yeah. I mean, especially, I called it out earlier as being really difficult, right? But you go to docs.rs, you type shuttle. I mean, okay, you get the README, right? So that's obviously pretty good for the shuttle project. A lot of Rust crates are not that good. Let's just throw that out there off the bat. Which means you end up coming into here and you're like, okay, well, let me take a look at the structs or I just opened that, or the functions. And it's like, all right, okay, so we've got this replace thing. And then you get like this, and you've got all of the inferred, ownerships and lifetimes. And I really struggle with it. As someone who's been writing Rust for a long time, it's just, I don't need to see all of this.
Or here's one, pull up Strum. The docs for Strum.
Yeah.
And this is a very specific, it's not part of the shuttle project. It's actually a crate. Right? So
all right.
Yeah. And then scroll all the way down. The one that you want is, I think it's like enum string.
Oh yeah, here.
Is the string? Yeah. So Strum is great for like deriving all kinds of additional useful functionality on enums in Rust, right? But there's a whole set of attributes that you can apply to customize the behavior. And there's one specific place in this page that it will tell you what those attributes are, right? But if you didn't necessarily know to look for it, or you're just skimming, you're gonna miss it. And you'll see like there are obviously a set of attributes, right? Like this behavior is obviously customizable. And there are some really good examples here, but like you have no idea what you can or can't do just based on these docs, right?
Yeah.
You have no idea what these attributes that are available to you. And even if you look at the additional attributes, which didn't used to be that big on the page there, right? It's still a little confusing, right?
Yeah, it's just wall of
Um,
text.
exactly. But like, I bet being able to have the context of an MCP break that down for you and tell you what does or doesn't exist based on not just the docs, but like the generated code, because that's not included in the display on docs.rs, but I think it actually is as part of the context on the context 7 side of things.
Let's put it. I'll leave that in the background. We'll see what it comes up with. Now let's go back to our shuttle plan, right? So we've kind of nudged it in the right direction. It's going to add these to our crate. It's going to update and the return type and the macro surrounding our main to make sure that this is now shuttle ready. It's even offered to create a secrets tunnel from a GraphQL endpoint. We don't really need that. And it's telling me how to deploy. However, I don't think it's going to run these commands. At least I'm hoping it's not going to do this. So I will stick it on manually approve edits just because I don't want it to do anything without me nudging it in the right direction. We'll see how we get on. This is now using context 7, so I'll come back to that in a minute. So far, I'm pretty excited. Like, AI is very non-deterministic, but we've been very lucky with our demos so far, I gotta say.
And I let's claim a little bit of skill, right? Because we have been doing a little prompt engineering here. We have been trying as much as we can to set ourselves up for success. But you know, I'm on the same page. Like, very impressed. Ooh, here's all right. So here's a first call out, and it's a subtle one, right? See that Oxum?
Mm-hmm.
We do, and we did recently, and it's probably actually not that recently, now that I'm thinking about it, upgrade the default version of Oxum. So it specifically looks like it's got Oxum 07, which is the feature flag for Oxum 07, instead of just updating to the latest version of Oxum. We do support 08, right? Interesting that it didn't call that out, but I'm assuming it just, because you specifically asked, help me make this a shuttle compatible project, did not mention also update versions as necessary.
Well, I'm running
So
Axiom 7.
yeah, and that's where I'm going with this, is the fact that like we did that upgrade. There is a newer version on the shuttle side of things that isn't the Oxum that you're using, and it pulled down the compatible feature, which I'm assuming it got from somewhere, right? It must have come from I'm assuming it got it from the context 7 for the shuttle Oxum crate, the feature documentation.
Yeah, I would assume so. I hope so.
Yeah, that's impressive.
All right, so it knows it needs to remove my Axiom listener, which is fantastic. We don't need an Axiom serve because we're using the shuttle type system now, and this is looking pretty sweet.
As a shuttle professional, this is on point. And just to plug the platform a little bit, right? It actually is that easy to convert existing projects to shuttle, genuinely, especially when you're using the assistance from Claude. Yeah.
That is what I love about it. Like, you're not asking me to just like buy into the shuttle way of doing it. Like, just write your code the way you would, and then change these little things. So
yeah, and you can see like the stuff that it cut out is also some of the irritating stuff that you do have to sometimes spend time looking up, right? Where it's like, oh, I've got my app, I've got my router, I configured it all, just into, right? Use that trait, do whatever it is you got to do. Get this out of here. I don't want to set up listeners. I don't want to set up binds, right?
yeah.
So like that's also part of that sort of shuttle philosophy of concentrate on what you're good at. We'll take care of the other stuff.
All right, let's see what we got from Strum Lookup. So I just made another MCP call. I really should have caught that earlier. But I'm assuming it won't take too long. And
I do like the text that it gives you when it's doing stuff like frolicking. I like that Claude brings in a little bit of whimsy to things.
it's much easier to digest. Like,
yeah,
serialize, disabled, default, serialize all. Nice. All right, back on course. Stop
back on course.
So it wants to do a local shuttle run. Sure, why not? We can test the app. Nothing should really change. Oh, I found a problem. So it's removing the trace and subscriber. Is that something you would expect?
Yes. The runtime sets one up for you. You don't need it.
Nice. Okay.
Yep. That is configurable via features, though. So if you want to retain it, you can. Not a problem.
Hey, it's running.
Look at that. And
All right.
this is another one of those things that you don't often think about, right? But when you doing stuff with Shuttle and you do Shuttle run locally, the way that it runs local is essentially identical to what you would see in production, right? So like it's a confidence thing to be able to go, I know that it will work because it worked locally, right? It should work the same way in production. You don't have that divergence that you sometimes do with, other deployment methods, right?
Okay.
You can run it, test it, you get a really fast inner loop just like that, and then you go, okay, I'm confident, push it.
So I tried to access it in port 3000, which is what I was using. So I backgrounded the shuttle run, and I've just asked it what the port is. 8000, thank you. Is that just the standard shuttle port?
Yes. Yep. You can customize that during the run command.
Too easy.
Look at too easy. Look at that.
All right. Deploy. I need this in production for a demo. Let's see what it does.
Again, the whimsy that it comes back with is on point. Is accomplishing. You love to see it.
All right, so it's killing my background process, which is fine. I don't need the local dev server anymore. And is it going to use the MCP? It is. There we go. Look.
Yeah. Look at that.
So because we have the shuttle MCP enabled, it's just going to deploy that right into production for me. That is super sweet. Oh,
and
no,
I think
it's not. Create a new project. Do I need to create the project first? No.
no. That appears to be a problem with the MCP itself. I think. I'm honestly not positive what it's complaining about there, but I will say things were going too well. This was bound to happen.
Yeah,
I feel much better now that we've run into at least one snag here, right?
I'm going to encourage
And this is one of those. There are multiple ways to interact with an MCP server. If you look at some of the write-ups, because it's such an evolving space, the standard, at least for the recent past, and I believe at least the last time I checked, which was 2 days ago, a lot of them do use standard I/O for the transport. Not all of them support things like SSE or HTTP for interacting with them. So this appears to be an issue with that standard I/O for transport. These things do happen.
This did work though. I have ran this multiple times, and it has never failed me. So this is very disappointing.
And Samir, yes, the MCP is fully written in Rust. It is part of the Shuttle CLI itself. So yes, it is. There are a couple of really good frameworks for it too in Rust. I'm not positive what to do about this.
I've got a plan.
Because again, I have also seen this work. This is the first time I've ever seen this problem.
I'm going to ask it to
with the
create
plan.
the TOML. I'm going to ask it to create the TOML.
Fair enough.
I don't know because I'm a shuttle.toml, but it seems to know. So
it does.
All right. I'm going to say no. I'm going to clear all the context and just say deploy our app. So now it's starting with no context, and I'm curious to see, is it going to get everything that needs from the shuttle.toml on the app and just be able to do this with MCP? So let's go back to my original prompt. I need this for production, in production for a demo. Please help me, Obi-Wan Claude. I like to have fun when I'm talking to Claude. So.
Absolutely. Same here. What is the point of life without at least a little whimsy, right?
Yeah. Checking
Look
the
at that.
shuttle deployment status. All right, so it's built it, compiled it. So I do have an older version of the shuttle CLI. I bet you that's what's causing the problems.
Likely. And that is something that we do try to be not aggressive, but at least slightly irritating about, because we try to roll out new features every time we possibly can. So sometimes they do require newer CLIs, and we will do a little bit of bothering, trying to keep folks up to date. Usually it's not a fatal error if there's not a breaking change that you're trying to use.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that it's got this in red, like it is an error. It's just a warning.
Yeah. Well, we've got our tool call. It wants to use the shuttle MCP. It wants to use the deploy function. It's providing a directory of our application.
Boo.
All right. We'll try one more thing before we revert to a manual deploy. I'm going to come into our cargo toml, and let's just match the CLI. Like so. And I'll do a cargo build. Oh. 56.
We don't tend to do patch versions there. I mean, it should be 56.0 across the board.
Oh, it's just the CLI that gets the patch. Right.
Yeah. It's true, Ivan. I wasn't going to say anything, but I'm glad that you finally took responsibility for what we all know that you did. It's appreciated.
All right. Ivan has left. Please deploy my app to production. I won't tell him you did it. There we go.
Wibbling, wobbling, doing stuff. You love to see it.
Oh, it's because I said we're hiding it from Ivan, and it felt like I was trying to skirt some sort of.
It's fine. So we'll just have to know in our hearts that we're circumventing Ivan, and make sure that we also keep Claude in the dark.
All right.
Welcome to today's stream, folks, powered by Claude Mushroom Edition.
All right, so it's now checking the project structure and the shuttle config. Come on, shuttle.
And I do like that it does, like, it picks that up every time. Like, it's very consistent about that in this test and all of the tests that I've done as well, which is really nice to see. Meaning, it with the MCP server enabled, it seems to know the difference between a shuttle project and not a shuttle project. Ivan, good Lord. I don't know how we've personally disappointed you, but we'll have to find some way to make up for it.
All right. I have no idea. Create a new project to link to this directory. I've never seen that before, so let's just do it.
Yeah.
With shuttle deploy. Because there's still magic to be had here.
There we go. Look at that.
So did that not pick that up from my shuttle.toml?
I'm not sure. And that's one of those, I'm not positive what it thought it was doing when it made it. Like I said, it is very much an optional file.
I know what the problem
we'd have to do some debugging. We'd have to do some
I think
forensics.
I know what it is. Because I think this project already exists in my shuttle, and I think we've confused it. So
that makes sense.
We'll let this deploy, and then what I'm going to do is let's modify some code. Let's just remove this info. And I'll have the MCP deploy the latest version, at least. So.
That's a good plan. It's also good to show, like, we're all working professionals here, right? We're all very familiar that sometimes things just don't work right? It's always nice to see reality as things actually are, as opposed to just those polished demos. It always makes you think of the original iPhone demonstration, where if you go back and you watch those videos, it does not look like anything like what it actually is. But the people who were doing those demos did say years later that they literally had to practice step by step, physical step by step, everything that they did with that iPhone 1 in the demo. Because if you did anything different, the whole thing would crash and become unusable for hours. Right? Yeah. So the difference between the real world that we live in and those polished demos, right? We're showing you the raw nasty here on Raw Code Academy today.
Well, I'm assuming everyone's seen the Mark Zuckerberg demo of the new glasses yesterday, right?
I have not. Regale me. What happened?
They were trying to do an accept of a WhatsApp video call via the new augmented glasses that they have with the screens and the heads-up display, etc. And they tried it like 4 times before giving up live on stage. Which I've got to say, like, I've never been a Zuckerberg fan, but the fact that they were doing the demo live, it bought him a little bit of cred. I was like, all right, okay, well done for trying. Like, I'd rather see it fail and do it real than just show me a recorded demo, which Google is all too bad for these days. So.
Yeah, that's very true, especially for like AR stuff, because if you're showing me something that's supposed to be real time, you ought to be able to show it to me in real time, right? That doesn't feel unreasonable.
Yep. Not normally this slow.
Well, again, we're doing a demo, right? I've got a little bit of confidence here that things are going slightly not to plan.
Let me log in.
No.
That's
good. We should be able to see this, yeah.
Well, why don't you talk about what this is actually doing behind the scenes, right? Because this is it's a container deployment happening, doing magic, right? Like
absolutely, and you should be able to see exactly the logs there, and you'll see it just transitioned from the build into the actual deployment. Deployments are after the initial one. The old one won't come down until the new one is ready to accept traffic, right? So it's not quite blue-green, but it is atomic, right? For all of this stuff, that is what is currently happening here right now. That's what it's waiting for is this new version to be able to start to accept traffic, pass its health check, right, and be good. That health check is actually built into the shuttle runtime itself, right? So it's kind of standardized across the board. And it's what allows you to be able to deploy with that confidence, right? So if you've got a version of the service that is up and running and you do a deploy and something goes wrong, service doesn't come up or what have you, you're not going to take your service down by doing this deployment, right? And that should pop up if we give it that. There's an endpoint on it, isn't there?
Yeah, I need to go to search.
That's the one.
Bastard. And we got it working. All right.
There you go.
Come on, Claude.
Get him, Claude.
I fixed some surplus logging. Apply the latest version.
Schlapping. That is a fantastic policy, Paul. That's definitely something that everybody should adopt. We can't because we've decided to come hang out with you guys all today. But I think we always accept shipped over beer, right? Like we accept beer delivery. Is that right, David?
I'll take it.
Yeah, we'll take it. So if you want to have something sent over, Paul, we'll take it.
Hey, this is looking better. We now have the Shuttle MCP server deploying the latest version of our application.
There we go. And so that I think is one of the demos, or one of the things that we wanted to demo about MCP in general specifically today, is that it is a way to give tooling to the models without, giving it unrestricted, insane power, right? So let it be able to do those deployments, not just run some console command, right? Put limits on the commands that it can run, on the arguments that it can supply, all that kind of stuff, and make it clear to the model what it's allowed to do and how, right? So it can make equally good decisions about those tools as it is for like the code and stuff that it's suggesting for you, right? It's just an extension of things that the model's already good at in a safer way.
Yep. So we can see it's on V2 deployment. It's doing the build now. And we're just waiting for that. We're not going to see any change to our production application because all I did was remove an info statement, but we were able to, I mean, Claude, Warp, and MCP has done everything today. We've really just been talking over it and distracting it. So
Confusing it, for sure. For
definitely
sure.
confusing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would love to hear more from the folks watching now that hopefully we've got a few more than we did at the start. For anyone who showed up after we originally started this, we did ask at the beginning if there are any MCP servers you guys would like to call out. Obviously, not everybody can be an expert in everything. It's impossible for everybody to know all of the new stuff. So I would bet good money that most of y'all know at least one MCP server I've never heard of that would be awesome to work with. Personally, I'm interested to try them. I want to hear about them. Drop them in the comments, send them in, ship them over via carrier pigeon with Paul's beer, whatever you got to do. There you go. And you can see that was obviously significantly faster than last time. Builds are cached. The difference in timing is, again, that making sure that the new one comes up before the old one goes down.
All right. I mean, we don't really need to load it again, but I do want to make sure that it works. I mean, I could also just have Claude do it, right? But I mean, I guess I should do something. There we go. And if we search for shuttle, 0, but that will change as of today.
Well, as of today.
Very nice. All right, let's pop back over to our chat. Excuse me. All right, that was awesome. I'm so excited about our AI overlord programmers taking all of our jobs. So I just want to recap quickly, right, before we wrap this up. GitHub MCP, such a great way. If you are looking to contribute to a new project, you don't know where to start. Some projects might only have, 20 or 30 issues, and of course you could go through that. But most mature projects, imagine going to the Kubernetes repository, and there's a good take-home exercise for anyone watching. If you want to contribute to Kubernetes, go ask the GitHub MCP to find you an issue that is tailored to your skills, tell it what you want to work on, what you're good at, how you want to get involved, and it's going to do a fantastic job of doing that. And then there's Context 7, as we've seen for both Mark and for myself, being able to have it understand not just the code that it's reading or the tokens, right? It doesn't really know code, it knows tokens. But given it that extra context of getting the documentation for any library, I mean, Context 7 supports Python, JavaScript, Rust, Go, everything. I mean, anything I've written at least is supported there. So really good way just to understand and then to ask questions for you to understand that code as well. It's just so much value in those two simple MCPs alone. And then as we've seen, having a very trivial change to a Rust application using Axum, 4 or 5 lines to get it onto the shuttle, and then even having the shuttle MCP tackle that deployment forwards as well. Fantastic use of AI, in my opinion.
Absolutely. We probably should have tallied how long it would have taken us to do all of that without the AI. Do one of those like comparison graphs, right? Everybody loves numbers and colors, but let's just roughly call it. It probably would have taken us honestly more than an hour in additional time to do all of that stuff manually, right? And that probably feels small, but in any given working day, like as an actual dev, that's an hour of time that I don't have to context switch through. So hopefully y'all all know exactly how valuable that is.
And compound interest, right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
All of those minutes saved add up over days, weeks, months, and years. So, and these things are only going to get better. Like we're still so early, and where AI is our pair programmer. I'm very excited to see where we are in 12 months' time.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what the folks watching today build too. I'd love to see someone launch an MCP server on Shuttle. I think that would be super cool.
Well, if no one else in the audience picks that task up, I'm sure you and I can schedule some more time and have some fun. I've got some ideas.
100%. I was going to say, I've enjoyed hanging out with you today, so I'm looking forward to doing it again.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you to everyone watching. Thank you so much, Mark, for spending time with me today. I hope everyone got incredible value from this. And to anyone watching in the future, put your comments into the comment section, and Mark and I will do our best to get back to you in due course. So, Mark, thank you so much. Oh no!
Of course.
Samir, right in there, right in the 11th hour. Is there?
That's on the YouTube video. Yeah, that's in the YouTube comments.
Yeah, can you?
I can. I don't remember it off the top of my head. I need to go look it up. So give me 10 minutes or so to wrap this. I will respond to your comment in just a bit, Samir.
All right. And Paul says the beers are on the way. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And anyone coming to KubeCon this year, we'll have to get together for beers as well.
All right. Thank you so much. We're going to give you some wonderful AI generated music to see us out. We'll see you all next time. Have a wonderful day. Adios.
We found the first issue, made the fix land. Context 7 showed the code we could understand. Shuttle took it live, smooth deploy in the end. Open source power shared with a friend. Your big thanks to Mark and the shuttle.